So Venerable Shilpan teaches in the sky of Dharmakaya gathered. So today we are doing the permission blessing, granting the permission to practice Manjushri based on the praise to Avalokiteshvara. So there are the three deities of the three families, which are Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and Vajrapani. So we pray to them. Manjushri is the deity of wisdom or intelligence. When I was young, a child in Kumbum, where there was, in Kumbum Monastery, there was the reliquary, golden reliquary of Tsongkhapa. So when I visited it, young monks were reciting this mantra of Manjushri Arapata Nadi so much, and they were making prostrations to this reliquary of Tsongkhapa and reciting this mantra of Arapata Nadi. And then I also remember reciting the same mantra at that time. And so in Tibet, monks and lay people, without any distinction, whether they are high or low, this Manjushri mantra Om Arapata Nadi has been recited by everyone, and it's very important, because without being able to increase your wisdom, which is able to distinguish the ultimate reality, or you won't be able to see the things, the reality very clearly, but roughly maybe you may be able to see things. If you have a very clear state of mind, then your wisdom, intelligence can be used to analyze things and see it, so that you are able to see the truth and reality clearly. So Manjushri, being the deity of wisdom and intelligence, is very precious. Has the tea come? Not yet. And so when I was a child, I saw these young monks reciting it. I remember this very clearly even now. And so I imitated them as well. Maybe I was 3 or 4 years old at that time, very young. And so in Kumbum, amongst the monks of Kumbum who were prostrating at the reliquary, there was one monk whom I showed some kind of dislike. And then he ran away and entered a small room, and he closed the door behind him. And then at that door, I threw some ash on his door. So I was very small. In any case, at that time, at the big monasteries, the monastery's prayer hall, I saw many people doing prostration and reciting the Arapacana mantra. And then I also felt interested. So this mantra is very full of blessing. Amarapacana is a mantra full of blessings. And so gradually, as you do your practice based on Manjushri, there are different aspects of Manjushri practice, inner, external, outer, inner, and secret, and so forth. And so, according to the various classes of the different classes of Tantra, I have received all these different transmissions. And so every morning when I wake up, I meditate on bodhicitta, and then before the long life mantras, I would I recite the Arapasanadi mantra every morning. And so these different faults of intelligence, these different intelligence or wisdom, such as great, clear, profound, and swift intelligence or wisdom can be developed. And then also the intelligence and wisdom for composition, debate, and teaching. And so, because of different aspects of the wisdom and intelligence within the mind and wisdom, there are these different categories of divisions of the intelligence or wisdom. And so, as I said, since my childhood, I had a close feeling with Manjushri. And so I've been reciting this mantra of Manjushri since my childhood. And so now I am 80, in my 80s. And when I look back in my life, I find that because of having recited the Manjushri mantra and made prayers to Manjushri, invoked Manjushri, I can see how my intelligence and wisdom has increased over the years. And so I see this benefit of reciting the mantra. So I would like to urge my Dharma friends, young Dharma friends, to recite the Manjushri mantra. So if you are able to increase your intelligence through the blessings of Manjushri, the Venerable Manjushri, then you'll be able to study your subjects better, learn them better. So amongst the geshes in the past, and also amongst my philosophy assistants, there were some who, although they had really worked hard to study, and their mind was not that, they were not that brilliant, I would say. But regarding me, although I didn't work so hard, I can say that I have quite a bright mind. Of course, it may be because of my imprints from the past, many lives, and also since my childhood, through the blessing of Manjushri. And Manjushri is also praised as so Manjushri has a special activity to bless us with wisdom. I pay homage to Sri Manju, who bears a youthful form, is adorned with the lamp of wisdom, and So Tsongkhapa is well known as someone who was a special, very great, special great being who was blessed by Manjushri. So Rinpoche's birthplace is close by where I was born. So when I see the praise of Tsongkhapa, Rinpoche, I always feel that, oh, I'm also from that birthplace. I'm from the same birthplace as Tsongkhapa. So Rinpoche himself studied all the different texts from the different Tibetan Buddhist traditions, Sakya, Sakya, Kadam, and Nyingma, and Kagyu. So at that time, he didn't have all these different facilities that we have today. So, but regarding me, I was born with a name. At my birth, I was given the birth name Hamodhundrup. Being born in this age and time, I had this opportunity to have discussions with different scholars. So, with this profound intelligence and wisdom, and as well as having the opportunity to discuss with different people from different disciplines, the double-edged sword of Manjushri is shining more and more. So we just said the blessing for the tea and bread. So, in the praise to Manjushri, it says that he dispels the darkness of the three worlds. So today, having had this interaction and having known many people from different walks of life, so of course, the triple world, and as a whole, we don't have direct kind of an interaction, but in this desire realm, I can say that with the help of, with the blessings of Manjushri's blessings, I have been able to dispel the ignorance and confusion in people's mind about what are to be adopted and what are to be rejected in terms of spiritual practice. And so I had been reciting the Arabhasana mantra since my childhood, and therefore it is helpful to dispel the ignorance of the world. The triple world. So here, mainly with the school children in mind, I'm doing this, the permission blessing of Manjushri. So it is called Jenang, or granting permission ritual for the practice of Manjushri, known as the one practiced with the praise, Lama. So now we do the seven-limb prayer to all lines of humans, that is Buddhas who have appeared in the 10 directions of the world and through the 3 times. I bow to them all without exception with devotion of body, speech, and mind. Through the power of this prayer of aspiring to good conduct, all the conquerors appear vividly before my mind, and with as many bodies as the atoms of the universe, I bow to all the conquerors with the deepest respect. On every atom are as many Buddhas as there are atoms dwelling in the midst of bodhisattvas, and so I imagine these conquerors to completely fill the realm of the reality, hailing them with an endless ocean of praise. With sounds of an ocean of different melodies, I fervently sing the good qualities of all the conquerors and praise all of you gone to bliss. I make offerings of these to these conquerors of lovely flowers and beautiful garlands, excellent music, ornament, ointment, parasol, bright light, and fragrant incense. I make offerings of to these conquerors of exquisite garments and perfect perfume. A heap of powdered incense as high as Mount Meru, all arranged in an extraordinarily supreme display. All these vast and unsurpassable offerings I imagine offering to all conquerors, and by the power of my faith in good conduct, I bow and offer to all the conquerors under the sway of desire, aversion, ignorance, and so forth. So these are this is supposed to be for the part of the preparatory ritual that the Lama should do, but there's nothing wrong in reciting it together, so we did it. Now we do the verse for taking refuge. I take refuge in the three jewels. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly by the collections of merit, of wisdom created by listening, through collections of them, through the giving and so forth, may I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its cause, and may they be free from suffering and its causes, and may they never be parted from happiness and abide in equanimity. So it's not only about reciting these lines in words, but we create all kinds of negative karma actions, and also building weapons, armaments, and lots of fightings are going on, conflicts. So we should pray that these may go away and that we can create peace in the world. For that, think of helping sentient beings, people, as much as possible. And even if you are not able to help others, at least do not harm them. And we should actually be practical about these. And even if you are not able to do this in practice, then at least make your prayer for that goal. So in doing the tantric practice, we have the conviction of insight into emptiness, so that you ascertain your mind, with your mind, emptiness, and then have the appearance of a deity. So the basic nature of the mind, the empty nature of the mind, of oneself and the deities, is same. So with that, we recite this mantra.
di sim namla arabasa nada chebale vesuchu
So So imagine the Manjushri.
Lama.
So visualize the rays of light radiating from the forehead of the Lama, who appears as Arya Manjushri. The light makes offerings to the Buddhas and So at the heart of Manjushri and the deity, the Lama and the deity in front in the mandala, there is a D syllable, and rays of light emit from there and invokes the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and they dissolve. Light makes offerings to all the Buddhas. And benefits all sentient beings. Making offering to Manjushri. So the front-generated deity is offered these different offerings. So the so then, having made offering, this Manjushri prayer, praise of Manjushri is recited. You whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who holds to your heart of scriptural text, symbolic of seeing all things as they are, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of a mother for her only son, you to all creatures caught in the prison of samsara. So this prayer is recited. I'll recite it 3 times. To all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering, you whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and frees us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever it sprouts, appear clearly, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. Its sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha, who has completed the stages of achieving the highest perfections of a Bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning. To you, O Manjushri, I bow. So this prayer, you whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions and traces of ignorance, who holds to your heart a scriptural text symbolic of seeing all things as they are, who teaches in 60 ways with loving compassion of a mother for her only child, to all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering, and so forth.
Omo arabaza nadi, omo arabaza nadi, omo arabaza. Omo arabaza nadi, omo arabaza nadi, omo arabaza nadi, omo arabaza. Omo arabaza nadi, omo arabaza nadi, omo arabaza.
So the blessings come and enter the heart where there is the wheel of swords, which turns very fiercely, and Arabajana standing around on the edges of the sword. So you recite Arabajana. Arabajana Dim, Arabajana Dim. So Arabajana is said to. It says that it should be recited 100 times. So there's this verse which is very good. All these things in the samsara nirvana are, without exception, are designated by our mind that is within. Though they appear to have some, so things appear to have as if they are, they have some kind of objective in independent existence, yet they do not exist that way. And then the text says, this mind also, if you analyze it, this also does not exist independently, without being depending on other factors. So what this shows is dependent arising or dependent origination. By dependence, suchness or reality of things is not discarded and by origination, the text says, the commentary says that we conform to worldly conventions. So all these things that are dependently originated do not exist in and of itself, but exist by way of dependence on others. So though things have no independent objective intrinsic existence, yet they cause all kinds of results and effects affect us. So this mantra, having recited it 100 times or so, meditate, place your mind in absorption on emptiness. So Manjushri is considered very holy, but where is Manjushri? Where is Manjushri? If you try to point your finger at him, where is he? Of course, we visualize Manjushri holding his sword, wielding his sword, double-edged sword. But if you try to analyze him within his body and mind, where is Manjushri? And similarly, with regard to the Buddha, Buddha is very precious, holy, but if you analyze him through the sevenfold reasoning, you will not be able to find anything that you can point to as being the Buddha or Manjushri. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. What happens is, in our mind, we have this clinging to some kind of a solidity in the object, the Buddha, and so forth. But when you use this kind of analytical reasoning, nothing whatever can stand to that test of reasoning. They cannot stand. But our clinging, this ignorance, clings on to some kind of solidity, concrete object there, but with that kind of reasoning of the sevenfold analysis, nothing can be found there. And therefore, this reasoning of the Madhyamaka, the middle way philosophy, is very precious. I do meditate on quite a lot on emptiness. So I can say that, so I may be able to say that I have realized emptiness. And then also the uncontrived bodhicitta also, I can say, I have. It will not be a lie to say that. So having meditated on these two principles for so many years now, and also combining them with the blessing, prayer, supplication to the Lama deities. So having done these meditation on bodhicitta and emptiness for many years, I have this kind of experience. This experience of bodhicitta has not just happened without effort. I put lots of effort and meditated, thought about it, contemplated and meditated on them. And so, due to the kindness of my tutors, the Vajradhara tutors, so today I have quite a good confidence with regard to the realization of emptiness and bodhicitta today. So having recited the Manjushri mantra 100 or so times, meditate on emptiness, and then I dedicate all these with this verse from the seven-limb prayer. Whatever little virtue I've accumulated by prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and entreating, I dedicate all this to complete enlightenment. So, reciting this praise of Manjushri 21 times, the text says, but we'll say it 3 times. You whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who holds to your heart scriptural text symbolic of seeing all things as they are, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of a mother for her only child, to all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering, you whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and frees us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever it sprouts, appear, clearing away the darkness of all ignorance. You whose princely body, adorned with the 112 marks of a Buddha, who has completed the stages of achieving the highest perfection of Bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning. To you, O Manjushri, I bow. So this prayer, whole prayer, is said 3 times. Please make offering, mandala offering. But first we'll do the ritual cake offering called Gektor. So Gek, or obstacles, beings, interrupters. I don't consider anyone as my interrupters or obstacles. So everyone is my friend. So we do this kind of ritual as if there's some beings called Gektor, Gek, or obstacles, obstacle beings. And then my ritual assistant would have his eyes wide open. So I don't consider anybody as my obstacle or Gek, hindrance. In fact, I would call them to come forth and give them teaching that there's nothing good in harming others, and you would not like others harming you, and so there's no point you should harm others. And so with that, the Gektor, the Torma ritual offering, was sent away. Now, mandala offering. Ground and anointed with perfumes, strewn with flowers, adorned with mud mirror, 4 continents, and the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha filled and offer it to you. May all beings, wandering beings, enjoy this pure land. Mitam Guru Ratna Mandal Kamniyatayami. So Next, it says to say this seven-line prayer 3 times, but we'll do the short one verse. Whatever little virtue I have accumulated, by prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and entreating, I dedicate all this to complete enlightenment. Whatever little virtue I have accumulated through prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, requesting and entreating, I dedicate all this to complete enlightenment. Whatever little virtue I've accumulated through prostration, offering a confession, rejoicing, requesting, and entreating, I dedicate all this to complete enlightenment. So earlier, as I said, the self-generation, imagine me. You should know that I have visualized myself into Manjushri. As I said before, I am somebody who has connection with Manjushri since my childhood, and I have quite a good degree of wisdom, which is able to differentiate between what is right and wrong, and so forth. And so, being able to see the ultimate reality. And so imagine the Lama here to be in the form of Manjushri. So visualize the rays of light irradiates from the forehead of the Lama who appears as I am Manjushri, and the light makes offerings to all the Buddhas and strikes their foreheads. So here, when we talk about making offerings, it's not just material offerings we are talking about, but the offering of our practice of the Dharma. And so the doing your best in cultivating the different good principles that are taught. So they strike these offerings, rays of light, in the form of offerings, strike their forehead, thereby invoking their mind. Then the blessings of all the Buddhas emanate from their forehead in the form of rays of light and dissolve into the forehead of the Lama with deep sense of devotion and respect, and treat the Lama who appears as Manjushri by reciting this praise of Manjushri. You whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who holds you to your heart a scriptural text symbolic of seeing all things as they are, who teaches in 60 ways with loving compassion as of a mother for her only child to all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusion and frees us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever it sprouts, appears, and clearing away the darkness of our ignorance, and so forth. I bow to you, Manjushri. And so the Lama, in the form of Manjushri, appearing in the form of Manjushri, has this appearance of Manjushri, who bears the youthful form, is adorned with the lamp of wisdom to dispel the darkness of the triple world. And so the Lama, carrying out the enlightened deeds of all Buddhas in the form of Manjushri. So immeasurable rays of light emanate from the forehead of the Lama and dissolve into your forehead, the disciple's forehead. This purifies all the negative actions and defilements you have accumulated with your body and imbues you with the conviction that you have received all the blessings of the body of Manjushri. So this blessing also... So the blessing of the Lama, of Manjushri, is also merely designated. Blessing that comes to you as the disciple, are also merely designated. And the blessing itself is merely designated. But though they are merely designated, these blessings still has their effects on you. And so from these white rays emanating from the Lama's forehead, imagine they dissolving into your forehead so that all you receive all the blessings of the body of Manjushri. And next, the blessing of speech. Visualize that the rays of light radiate from the throat of the Lama, who appears as a Manjushri, noble Manjushri. The light makes offerings to all the Buddhas and strikes their throat, thereby invoking their mind. Then the blessings of the Buddhas, all Buddhas, emanate from their throat in the form of rays of light and dissolve into the throat of the Lama with a deep sense of devotion and respect. Entreat the Lama, who appears as Manjushri, by reciting the Gangloma, the praise of Manjushri, 3 times, or once or 3 times. You whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions and traces of ignorance, who holds to your heart scriptural texts symbolic of seeing all things as they are, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of a mother for her only child to all creatures, caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and frees us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields a sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever its sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of our ignorance. You whose princely body is donned with the 112 marks of a Buddha, who has completed the stages of achieving the highest perfections of a bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning. To you, O Manjushri, I bow. So immeasurable rays of light, imagine this happening, immeasurable rays of light, red light emanate from the throat of the Lama, dissolves into your throat, purifies all negativities and defilements that you have accumulated. And so imagine receiving all these blessings of the speech and have the conviction that you have received all the blessings, so that you are able to now achieve this silver tongue. So I always think of helping sentient beings. As long as peace endures, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the suffering of the transmigrators. So I always feel I'm dedicated to the well-being of all sentient beings as much as I can, to the best of my ability. So visualize rays of light, red in color, coming from the Lama's throat and dissolving, comes forth to you and dissolves your throat. So I was born in Amdo, in Tibet, and I have the title of Dalai Lama. So imagine these rays of light coming in the form of red light coming from my throat to you, and imagine receiving the blessings of the speech of Manjushri. And next, blessing the mind. So I meditate and cultivate bodhicitta and the view of emptiness. And this is my offering of practice to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So visualize that rays of light radiate from the heart of the Lama, who appears as Manjushri. I am a noble Manjushri. The light makes offerings to all the Buddhas and strikes their heart, thereby invoking their mind. Then the blessing of all the Buddhas emanate from their heart in the form of rays of light and dissolve into the heart of the Lama. With a deep sense of devotion and respect, entreat the Lama, who appears as Manjushri, by reciting Gangloma, the praise of Manjushri, once or 3 times. So please say this praise. You whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions and traces of ignorance, who holds to your heart a scriptural text symbolic of seeing all things as they are, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of a mother to her only child, to all the creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in darkness of the ignorance, and overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of delusion and frees us from the iron chain of our karma, who wields the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever its sprouts appear, clearing away all the darkness of our ignorance. You whose princely body is adorned with the 112 marks of a Buddha, who has completed the stages of achieving the highest perfection of a Bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning. To you, O Manjushri, I bow. So immeasurable rays of light emanate from the heart of the Lama, dissolve. So we have already entreated the Lama, who appears in the form of Manjushri. So next, imagine immeasurable rays of blue light emanating from the heart of the Lama and dissolving into your heart. So all these defilements come through causes and conditions. They do not exist independently. And so defilements like self-cherishing attitude, by meditating on emptiness, we use this as an antidote to our ignorance, and which holds on to some true existence in things. And with bodhicitta, we can use it as a counterforce to a self-cherishing attitude. So rays of blue light emanating from the heart of the Lama dissolves into you, that purifies negativities and defilements you have accumulated with your mind, and imbues you with the conviction that you have received the blessings of the mind. So as I said earlier, I meditate and cultivate bodhicitta and the wisdom of emptiness every day. And therefore, the wisdom of the view of emptiness and the method or skillful means of bodhicitta. So the blessings of these two principles come forth from the Lama into you, so that you are able to transform your mind from self-cherishing attitude to cherishing others over oneself, and also from this ignorance, clinging to the true existence, independent existence in things, and from this to the wisdom realizing emptiness, that so that you are able to see things as being empty of intrinsic existence, which is how things appear. So imagine you receive all the blessings of the mind of the Lama. So with this, we have completed the blessing of Arapatana Manjushri, the blessings of the body, speech, and mind of Arapatana Manjushri. So there are many Buddhist countries in the world today, but being able to explain the Buddha Dharma through extensive and rigorous study, it seems the Tibetans have the best tradition to do that. So for thousands of years, we have preserved this pure Buddhist tradition, the teaching of the Buddha. And so you have received such a pure teaching of the Buddha today. And now what you should do is to focus on your study. Do study well, so that you are able to understand what Buddhism is about clearly in your mind. Have the good idea of what Buddhism is. And as Tibetans also, we have this pure Nalanda tradition with us. So the Tibetans inside Tibet have unwavering faith and devotion, determination, and we are all fellow Tibetans. And so we are the special beings taken care of by Arya Avalokiteshvara. So, in all of us, through this blessing of Manjushri, imagine or feel convinced that you have received the blessings of Manjushri so that you will be able to develop bodhicitta and the view of emptiness before long. So whatever practices I do, in connection with that, I have spoken and given teaching to you, and so please do your best to practice the principles of bodhicitta and view of emptiness. So we are left with the final. I'll do everything the principal deity has advised. I'll do everything that the principal deity has advised. I'll do everything that the principal deity has advised. So please make a mandala offering, a thanksgiving for receiving the jenang, the permission blessing. This is the verse for the long life of verse prayer for the long life of His Holiness. So at the end of the Manjushri prayer, there's this verse. Affectionate one, with the light rays of your supreme knowledge, you clear the darkness of naivety from my mind. Grant me, please, the light of confident intelligence to fully fathom the classic text of Buddha's words and their commentaries. This is the dedication verse from the King of Prayers. So there's a question and answer session now. I'm from Main Tibetan on behalf of everyone from Main Tibetan. So how should I do things to serve others? Please get advice. So as Tibetan medicine is very good for chronic diseases. The allopathic medicine, of course, is very helpful when you are in an emergency case. But to get rid of the chronic diseases, Tibetan medicine is very good, effective. So while treating the patients, you should have a good heart There is a saying in Tibetan in the past, such and such doctor may be learned, who has also some rank in the Tibetan government. So he also applied this certain medical treatment on me. And so it is said that though that people used to say that although this doctor is very learned, so he treated me. I have this mark on my arm. And so he was really nice to me. And so after his treatment on me, on my skin, it was swollen. And so because of this pain that I had actually as a child, I was running around with this pain in my arms and said, this fat doctor caused this to me. And so Tibetan medicine is very good for treating diseases, and we also should try to combine the treatment of Tibetan medicine with the allopathic medicine as well.
Kumurani suja moim lupche lupma ditsi de chinking lunga yisum kuine kon terin kon
with my frustrations to Your Holiness from Suja, Tibetan children's village. Many Tibetan children are imitating foreign lifestyles or disciplines like philosophy and so forth, and that is causing decline in our own cultural heritage. So, Your Holiness, please advise us what we should do. So, what you have said is true. So, over the last many years, people were rather carried away by the Western culture and ignored our own tradition, and also didn't take interest in studying them. So we have somehow made a mistake there. So with regard to the Western allopathic medicine and science and so forth, people have taken interest in them much to the expense of the traditional, paying attention to the traditional values, our religious spirituality and cultural heritage. And then there is growing interest, newfound interest amongst the Westerners in our own tradition and culture, religion. So they see values in our culture, religion. So we have, of course, contact with. So we need to expand our contact with the Western world, because we lacked that in the past. So with this verse for the long life of His Holiness, I'm from Chontra, GCV school. Please allow me to ask questions to you. Please guide me as to how I should study that accords with time. So, of course, I cannot say we are 100% right in what we have been doing. But in India, we have the study of Western, the modern subjects, as well as the traditional Tibetan subjects, and so, which is very good, to a certain degree quite good. So Western, the modern education is more or less focused on the developing materially, but not in relation to our mind. So the Tibetan tradition, Buddhist tradition, is something which works to develop within our mind. You were born in Tibet, your activities have spread around the world. I pay homage to you. So many of the mind training texts mention that bodhicitta alone can fulfill the two accumulations of merit and wisdom. If that is the case, does it not contradict these lines from a commentary to valid cognition, which says, since loving kindness and so forth do not oppose the ignorance with respect to the object of apprehension, it cannot destroy the severe faults such as aversion. So all sentient beings across the expanse of space, including this world, all are same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, like myself. So sentient beings are limitless, infinite. So all the misfortunes that happen to me, sicknesses, and we can pray that may all these misfortunes that are happening to sentient beings across the expanse of space ripen upon me, and may I be able to, directly and indirectly, help all sentient beings. This is very important to pray, and it's very important to pray in this way. So this it has to do with equaling and exchanging self for others. So in the 8 verses, it says, as may all the suffering and misfortunes of sentient beings ripen upon me, and because of the suffering that I undergo, may all this, may it serve to suffice the overcoming of suffering of all sentient beings across the expanse of space. And this helps you to increase your determination to work for others. So, of course, others, and also you make this prayer that your virtues, wholesome actions, and so forth may ripen upon other sentient beings. But although it may not practically happen in reality, so this question was related to the Bodhisattva Charya Avatara verse, line where it says, you must practice this holy secret. So the question was about, so of course, thinking of all sentient beings, taking on the suffering of all sentient beings and giving your virtues to others is something that not everybody can do. Many of the people may not be able to think in terms of these practices. So you should study Bodhisattva Charya Avatara. So I read Bodhisattva Charya Avatara every day, and it is the most effective text for transforming your mind. So this verse of homage to His Holiness. I feel honored to have this opportunity to ask question to you, Your Holiness. So generally we have faith and trust in the three jewels. However, please advise as to how I should practice the precepts of taking refuge in the three jewels as a householder. So, of course, we have different monastics and the householders. Lay people have different attires. So, when someone becomes a monk or nun, they change their clothes. So, externally, we are different. But in terms of practice of bodhicitta and the view of emptiness, there is no difference between lay people and monastics. So there's nothing else to say here. It only says. Due to the power of your practice of compassion, you were given the Nobel Peace Prize. I pay homage. I'm from Gopalpur TCV School. On behalf of all this, so please teach us about Helram and karma, the law of karma, which I have doubt sometimes. So you're not to be blamed. Even Master Chandrakirti says in his Madhyamaka Avatara auto-commentary, criticizes, does not agree with the elder Vasubandhu when he talks about the cosmology, where it says there is Mount Meru in the center, surrounded by the 4 continents, and so forth. So I do not believe that presentation of Vasubandhu in Abhidhammakusha Karika. So please give us an example to have a clear idea of karma and Helram. So regarding karma or actions, with the sincere heart, if you help others, it will be good to you. Whereas if you deceive others out of hypocrisy, and that will not be good for you in the end. And so, with a good heart, sincere heart, not looking for your own gain, and also deceiving others with a selfish motive, the end result would be something bad to you. So from my side, the meditation on bodhicitta and the view of emptiness, I do these practices sincerely, and therefore people trust me. So if I were to give teaching to you, but in my practice I do the opposite, then you will not trust me. You'll say, oh, what His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, does is something different from what he speaks. And so, being hypocritic, sitting on a high throne and telling lies, the profound lies, these things can happen to lamas. So you should always check whether the lama's actions accords with his talk. So if they are not concordant, if his action is discordant with the speech, then you may not trust the Lama. This is also a verse of long life of His Holiness. I, on behalf of TCV, Upper TCV, So this is the question. Many of the mind training texts mention bodhicitta as alone can fulfill the two accumulations of merit and wisdom. If that is the case, does it not contradict Pramanavartika, where it says, since loving kindness and so forth do not oppose the ignorance with respect to the object of apprehension, I cannot destroy. It cannot destroy the severe faults of aversion. So with meditation on emptiness, without the meditation or the experience of emptiness, insight into emptiness, it will be difficult to counter your biased attitudes through attachment and anger or hatred. So because attachment and anger happens because of grasping and holding on to things, having some kind of objective existence, whether they are good or bad. So as opposed to self-cherishing attitude, self-fish motive, what you should think is benefiting others. So this is about equaling and exchanging self for others. So take your body as an example. Look at your body, it says, and then do not harm others. So all of us are same in not wanting suffering, but joy and happiness, down to the small insects. And therefore, always try to restrain harming others. Even if it may be small, like insects, you should restrain harming them. So that's all. This is the words of truth. The prayer of true words. You whose glory is an ocean of immeasurable qualities, and who looks upon the poor beings as if they were your only child, Sugatas of the past, present, and future, Bodhisattvas and your disciples, pray heed these lamentations of truth. May the entire teaching of the Buddha, which dispelled all the torments of existence and peace, spread to benefit the whole wide world with help and happiness. May those who hold them, scholars and practitioners, flourish in their practices of the 10 activities of Dharma. Utterly oppressed by the intolerable intensity of their negative actions, deprived beings are tortured by interminable suffering, pacify their unbearable disease, wars, famines, and bring them the succor of infinite joy and well-being. In particular, the people of Tibet, inheritors of the Dharma, custodians of the Dharma, are being destroyed by the many evils of barbarian hordes, malevolent and heartless. In a river of blood and tears, arouse the force of compassion that their torment may swiftly be stopped. Those hosts of savage oppressors, cruelly crazed by their own demonic passions, who bring ruin on both others and themselves, deserve our compassion. May they develop a complete vision of right and wrong and appreciate the benefits of loving care and friendship. Since long time, the wish most dear to my heart has been for the all of Tibet to enjoy total freedom in a natural combination of spiritual and secular spheres. Grant that I may soon have the fortune to take part in that celebration. For all those who undertook hundreds of hardships for the sake of doctrine, those who hold it, the country and their compatriots, sacrificing their cherished body, lives, and possession. Lord of the Patala Buddha fields, protect them with your compassion. In short, Lord, protector of Avalokiteshvara, in the presence of the conquerors and the Bodhisattvas, I pray, take under your care the Buddha fields of the land of snow, that the good results of the vast aspirations you have made right now may swiftly come about by the profound dependent arising of absolute nature and emptiness and appearance, the power of the three jewels, compassion, the strength of words of truth, and the infallible force of cause and effect. May these eyes So, through the practice of bodhicitta and wisdom of emptiness, you see me always smiling. So you should also do the same. There's no difference, and this is not about whether you have a high or low rank or a big Lama estate or not, but to help others with sincere heart